Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Deborah, and this is She Wears Boldly, and it's all about women, all about women owning that stage and doing the amazing things that they do. Today, our wonderful guest is Kaylie Bonner, and she does so many things. I hope she's going to share a whole bunch of great insights with all us out there. So take it away.
So I guess it was such a privilege to be invited to speak with you and all your people because after we met in Valencia last year, it I loved your vibe and your energy, and I loved that you're bringing that to the room and really creating a space for women to step into to be able to shine. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for that. Also, tell them where you're from, because that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, so I'm from Australia. I live in the capital of Australia, which is Canberra, which is a freezing cold um, place. The sun's shining this morning, so
It
it's
got
really
a
nice.
little bit warm here in Wisconsin, a little bit.
Oh, what is a little bit warm?
Okay, so do you want to start with maybe some woman issues stuff, health
Yeah,
and things like that you like to talk
yeah,
about?
can.
Give
So,
me something I can do good.
give me something I can do. Well, I guess let's start at the beginning because as women, we're born into bodies that no one really teaches us about. And it's not our parents' fault or our mum's fault or anything like that because they didn't get taught about it either. And it's the things that were really intrinsic knowledge that was passed down through, wisdom and kitchen table talk and doing the process of being a woman for centuries. And
Uh-huh.
then in the last several centuries, it got lost. And it got lost through a whole lot of things, but some of the reasons it got lost is, I mean, the patriarchy, I suppose, is the thing, but it became such a threat to men, these powerful women. And so we have had a history of the last few hundred years, at least, of being um, told that we're not right or we're not good enough in who we are as women. So, as being a woman and being a bleeder once a month and things
Right.
like that, things came into play. If you weren't heavy enough, if you lost weight, you obviously knew how to use herbs, so you were a witch, so you were burned. If you knew how to heal someone, oh, she's a witch, let's burn her. Um, and even just if we go back to that one just before, like if you have
Wow,
lost
yeah.
weight and you get weighed every week, like imagine the sort of the level of suppression or intensity that that creates, that if you have to maintain a standard for years and years through all the things that life throws at us with hormonal fluctuations and things like that. Imagine having to stay the same forever and get weighed every week, and things like this happened, not very long ago in our history, and then it gets passed on. So that trauma of that, whether it's and it doesn't have to be bad trauma either. It can just be little bits of trauma. You might not have had to live through that because you didn't live in the countries that did burn the witches. However, if you have come from a line of that, which we all have, we've all got mothers, um, then what we haven't recognised in science until the last maybe 20 years, but then it stopped, like it stopped being researched about 5 or 10 years ago when, I guess when old COVID happened, all the funding went away from everything. But there's this thing called epigenetics, which is a type of science. It's not the type of science, it's a part of our body, which is the passed on and inherited knowledge. It's the thing that wraps around our DNA. And when you take that, scientists always thought it was nature versus nurture, but we miss this really key element because what makes our genes turn on and things like that. And so this this amazingness of human beings as beings is lost if you don't take into account this epigenetics. And now epigenetics is what's passed on. So you get 50% from the sperm and 50% from the egg. But the smallest cell in a human body is a sperm, and the biggest cell in a human body is an egg, which is amazing in itself. And it holds all the information, and then it's incubated for 9 months inside the woman. So during that time, all of her emotions are going into, all of her interactions, all of that. Now, if that woman is pregnant with a baby girl, by 20 weeks pregnancy, the eggs of the future baby girl, so that little girl who'll come up to be a woman, the eggs are already formed fully inside her. So basically, we get 20 weeks inside of our grandmother, plus the lifetime before we're born or before we become a fetus inside of our mother, and all of that learning. And then we have the time inside the mother's womb as an egg with the father's DNA, becoming a human, and then we're born. And then we grow up, and no one tells us how to run this body, whether you're a male or a female, no one's telling us. And so what's happened in our history, in our lifetime, in our modern life styles, is that medicine became a thing a few hundred years ago, and doctors, and they studied things, but they made us into compartments. So if you've got a problem with your body, you'll go to the general doctor. And if you've got a problem with your female cycle, you'll go to the gynecologist. Or if you've got a problem with your brain, you'll go to the psychologist or the psychiatrist. And the cardiologist and the renal doctors, whatever. So everything's in a box. And we
Right.
forgot that as human beings, we are all one. And then no one taught us, especially as women, how it all goes together. So when we feel an emotion or something happens to us, our body releases chemicals, which triggers hormones, which in men, there's a sort of couple of basic ones. In women, we've got about 5. We've got more than that. But we've got 5 that all interact. So any time that a trigger happens, these are all happening. But also any time that you then relive those experiences or have a memory of it, those triggers, all those hormones are rushing through you again. And if we don't understand that, then we can't make the problem that's in our head fix the problem that's, maybe we've got in our period, our menstrual cycle's not regular, or maybe we get PMS, which we should not get, or really bad period pain, or we have endometriosis, or we have all these period problems. And maybe it's not because just that standalone. Maybe there is a mental health connection that triggers the chemicals that imbalances other things that then causes different things. And that's what I talk about. That's what I love to remind people, that you probably, maybe things aren't working well. Maybe they're working well until you want to have a baby, and then you figure something's not working well, or you don't know enough about it, but when you understand how it works, then you can really, without a stress, you can really start to figure out what's not quite right. And sometimes dealing with your mental and emotional problems fixes physical problems. We all know that. So somatic illness is a thing. So
Wow, a couple of things you said just, I went, wow. One, I'm adopted, and I did find my birth family. So how you were talking about genetics was in me, but I didn't understand that until I actually met them. And I'm like, wow, I got so many things like them. In fact, they're going, at least 2 of them will be listening to this when it comes out, and probably some more. But yeah, I guess we just don't think that way. And the other thing that really hit me is you are correct. We have so many specialists that they don't see the big picture. Like, I've had a thyroid problem since I was a teenager, but I had this lump, and I went to my doctor. She said, talk to the thyroid doctor. Went to my thyroid doctor, said, talk to your doctor. And so I haven't died, so I figure I'm
the
okay.
endocrinologist, talk to the next one. Yeah.
Nothing's happened. But there was a gap there where
Yeah.
no one would listen to me. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
then we
mean,
don't get heard. And then the other thing is that we're shut down because we're not being heard. And so then we think it's all in our
yeah.
head. And then it's this big cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought, well, either I'm going to die or I'm not, because there's nobody left to talk to.
Yeah.
And I think that happens to us women far more than it happens to men. My husband has
Yeah,
something wrong, somebody's always on it. And I just seem to just flop back and forth and around him.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
and
you're
it is a
saying.
thing because it is difficult sometimes for doctors because and the reason that some of these things have happened is because it's really easy to study men. They're really consistent. They've got a 24-hour
Right.
cycle. If they get their 8 hours of rest and their 8 hours of physical work or even mental work, they're quite happy. And then they go into their nothing box and then they're good, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for women, because we work on a 28-day cycle, it's much harder for them to study us because it's more up and down. There's different ones, there's extra ones, things, there's ones that take from one to make that. Like if we want our testosterone levels to rise, which is not testosterone, it's progesterone for women, but our sort of testosterone uses, sorry, cortisol uses progesterone, which is our more masculine hormone, to
Yeah.
make itself. Like you need progesterone to make it. Well, that depletes our, our female cycle, so it puts us straight into a stress, and then we end up with an imbalance in estrogen and progesterone, and then we end up teary and a hot mess because when our period's coming, or even when it's not. Even if you don't have a period or a cycle, we do have a period or a cycle from birth till death as a woman. But no one
Right.
teaches us that. They believe, in the medical world, it's only between puberty and menopause, but actually that's not true because even if you've had a hysterectomy or anything like that, there's still a cycle.
Yeah, I
So,
had that
and you still
too.
have to be aware of it. And if you're not aware of it, you're then pushing against this thing that you have, this invisible force that you don't know what's going on.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't really put all that together. So I think a lot of women are going, yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. So what can we do?
So, what you can do is one is basically awareness. So wherever you are, like whether you're a little girl before you started your period, you've got little girls, your kids, or if you're an older woman, I mean, the best thing you can do is come together with other women and talk about it and observe it in yourself and in each other together. Because once you start to learn it, it's really easy to track. You don't like I don't have to keep a note of it anymore. The first few months I did, and a few times in my life at different stages, or if it changes, then I do. But if you talk about it and you observe it together, you all learn to recognize things in each other, and you can recognize, if you know that someone is in the first few days of their menstrual cycle, you can give them, and even if they're, as I said, even if they're not a bleeder anymore, if they're not, if they've had a hysterectomy, there's still a time of the month that will be that their body needs to rest and recover, which used to be highlighted by that menstrual cycle.
I never heard that.
But
Never
learn it.
been
Hey, what's
told
that?
that. I said I've never
That
been told that. I mean, like I
that
said,
you
I
have a
had
cycle.
cancer, so I had it when I was 30, and no doctor ever told me that.
Yeah.
Wow,
No, but
it's,
doctors won't because they believe that it's only in that space of menstruating. So if you then have a hysterectomy, you're menopausal. So then you don't technically have a cycle. And the thing is that once you don't have a monthly bleed, if you have gone beyond menopause or you're not there yet, normally when you're young, it's really consistent once a month, 28 days ish. Like it's around the moon cycles and it's around,
yeah,
or you can measure it with the moon cycles and things like that. But if you're a bit older, once you sort of hit perimenopause, you might get a bit more time between your ovulations and your cycles, or it might be beyond menopause, and it could be that you have 6 to 8 weeks before you have that dip in
yeah.
the hormones. But if you're not watching it and you don't understand it and you're not aware of it, you won't see the cues that you have and you won't respect it, so then you won't rest, so then you also end up in a lot more turmoil, whether it's physically or emotionally, because we're not honoring our body and how it's meant to work.
So what I'm hearing you say is that as women, we need to start really respecting, listening to our body
Yeah,
and honoring
and
what's
because we've
happening, not just keep brushing it aside because we're trying to do so many things, so busy, and just, oh, well, So I think sometimes, I mean, I know sometimes other people do, but I think sometimes we brush it aside too. It's like,
well,
oh,
we
well,
do because we get busy and we've we're in a world that tells us that we shouldn't be worrying about it and you don't have to deal with that. And I mean, once upon a time it would have been life and death. You would have had to go and extricate yourself because otherwise the animals would have sniffed you out and killed you, right? Like,
yeah.
like it would have been a thing. So we would have had to have had that time in a cave protecting ourselves and being safe. Um, Whereas we don't have that now. We can continue, we can carry on. We just don't realize the cost. And what happens is when you're younger, that cost isn't so much because you can physically push through and it's okay and you can sleep on the weekend and life gets busy. And first of all, it's a superpower if you understand, especially if you're in sales or anything that you work with other people, that there is a week or a window in the month that you are much more potent and powerful. And you could work for one. As a woman, like men have to work every day, right? But as a woman, we could work for 1 week a month and be totally fine. Work for 1 week a month, sleep for 1 week a month, and the other 2 weeks just have fun and do whatever we want. But no one told us that, right? We have to do business in
Not
that
seeing it
same
happen, but
model.
yeah. It
Yeah,
would be
like we
nice,
would
wouldn't
not
it?
be able to put our life on hold, right? Just because we feel, oh, I don't feel like it for the next 3 days, but because of our modern world. But if we, once you realize that, you can bring things in. So I have worked with people in business because, it's uh, it's such a physical thing that it's so private often. We don't talk
Yeah.
about it. But once you allow it space, so I worked with a construction organisation,
Hmm.
and I got this tip from a friend of mine in America who she is also a menstrual educator and coach. And so I told them that between the three women in the office, they just needed to they had a necklace. The boss bought them these necklaces after they talked to me. And that if they had their period, they would wear this necklace. And so those few days, no, none of the men in the construction company knew, but those 3 days, these women, or 4 days or a week or whatever, the women would wear this necklace and the other women would, bring them a cup of tea. They'd block out time in their afternoon so they could sleep under their desk and they'd have a meditation session. And their whole business improved by 80% in productivity simply
Hmm.
because these three women, powerhouses in the office, made a couple of changes that just allowed each other to support each other in that space while still working, and it just the benefits were across the whole board. The men noticed it, the women noticed it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is great. I was just sitting here thinking, as women, and you said it, we're always pushing through, always pushing through, always pushing
always
through.
pushing through,
My
always
husband
keep
doesn't.
going.
My husband doesn't do that. He's probably gonna listen to this too, but yeah, I mean, when he's sick, and he just
Oh,
flops down, goes to
exactly. They just,
sleep.
I can't, I'm going to die. They're sick, they're
I'm
going to
still
die. Whereas we
I'm
like
still
still
trying
driving
to
them everywhere, cooking
do
the meal.
I'm still doing my business. I know people think, oh, well, you work at home. They have no idea how much goes into speaking and podcasting and everything
Yeah,
else, all the background stuff. And I'm always sick or whatever. I'm just trying to push through, and I always have. And I think we as women always do. I don't know where we got that idea. Was it taught us, told us? I have no idea. But men just like, okay, I'm sick now. I'm taking a nap.
yeah. And then they get better. It's amazing.
And so
I
it's
want
not
to
that
try that next
they're
time.
bad. I'm not saying they're bad, but we get resentful sometimes, but it's not that they're doing something wrong. Maybe they're doing what we should be doing.
They
Like
definitely
when
are.
we're not at our top, maybe we should step back and
And
take care
maybe
of
if we did it
ourselves.
more, yeah,
Why
and
do
maybe
we,
if we did it
yeah, why do
more,
we
it
as a
would become
whole not,
normal.
yeah, take care of ourselves as we should? We feel
Yeah,
guilty, I think. Taking care
yeah,
of ourselves makes us feel guilty.
yeah,
It's kind of crazy when you're pointing it out.
yeah. Isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
isn't it? You sit there and think, oh, that's mad. But it's so real. Everyone has done it.
Yeah, maybe you need to give us all permission right now to take care of ourselves.
You have permission.
We seem to need that too. Yeah, wow. Yeah, we have permission here. We need to take care. We need to listen to our bodies. We need to take care of what we need to take care of. Because are we really functioning at the level we should be functioning when we're going through all these things? No.
Well, I think the really thing to remember is how long this has been a thing. Like we have been gaslit for years. When you go to the doctor,
Forever.
yeah, I mean, if you go to the doctor and say there's something wrong, they will tell you that there's nothing wrong because maybe
Oh,
on
yeah.
paper, maybe your blood tests, they all sort of just say that you're fine. But if you know that that's not the case, people either do two things. They'll either shut it down and they'll just listen to their doctor and they'll trust their doctor. Certainly, my grandmother's generation would have done that. They would have not ever questioned a doctor. Whereas now I think we're getting a bit more savvy that, hang on a minute, that's not okay that you're telling me that that's not real or that's in my head. But then we get into this really tricky space that if you think it's only in your head, then you don't do anything about it as well because it's embarrassing or it's shameful or things like that. So there's
Yeah.
like this, we've been gaslit, medically gaslit for centuries, generations as women. So we shut it down. But even as mums, like, I mean, I don't know when you had your kids and things, and you go and see that wellness or whatever you have, wherever you live, normally they have like a kindercraft program or something like that, little babies. And they'll even tell you, oh no, you don't have to worry about that, or you
Right.
just don't. So you don't trust your gut instinct, even if you think there's something wrong. Don't trust your gut instinct because we're doctors and nurses and we know. But that's the worst thing we can do if we have a gut instinct because that's when things start to unravel because we forget who we are.
Oh, okay. If you don't mind, I just want to tell a story right here
Go do it.
because I think women need to hear this, and I don't think I've ever told it like
Good.
across the
I'm
air.
glad I'm giving you
But
space.
if I hadn't listened to my body, I would not be alive. I would have died of that cancer when I was 30 and left 3 small children. But it's a funny thing. I didn't have anything severe, nothing huge. It's just I could not sing, and I'm a singer and I love to sing. And every time I sing, I would cramp up.
In your
And
stomach.
I would get cramps really, really bad every time I tried to sing. And I had a clear discharge, which turns out are the two things for uterine cancer, by the way. By the time I got a doctor to listen to me, I was at stage 3. And they just kept saying, "No, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you." But I couldn't sing and I wanted to sing. So I kept pushing it and I kept pushing it. And finally, I got a doctor that said, "Well, I'll humor you." And I said, "Good." And so he did an ultrasound and he came back and said, "Well, there's something really weird in your stomach. It's this weird fluid." I'm like, okay. To this day, we don't know what that was, but it saved my life. So then he did a laparoscope and then he walked in the room and said, "Do you have stage 3 cancer?"
What sort of cancer was it? Ovarian
That was
cancer.
the third doctor I talked to.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't listen. But if I would have done exactly what you said, and I know so many women that just accept what doctors tell them, and I'm 100% behind you, don't. If you know your body, you know, a good friend of mine is going through that right now with her something in her throat, fighting and fighting doctor after doctor. And I mean, I know you'll join my voice with that. Fight. If you think something's wrong, it probably is. For whatever reason is you just know something's wrong, something's wrong. Go to doctor after doctor. I know it's hard with insurance, but you've got to keep pushing that. You really do, because you don't know, it could save your life, literally
Yeah.
save your life. If nothing else, give you a better quality of your life. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so huge, man.
It's yeah. I think if that's the one thing I can give to women, especially around that cycle, if you know your cycle or you know something changes, that's the thing. Knowing it, then you know when it changes. And that can be such a big difference, because if that's
Oh
not
yeah.
normal for you, then that's not normal and it needs to be checked.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can say that enough. Because, like you said, I've heard women say, "Oh, well, my doctor said it." I'm like, let me tell you my experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't wait till you have to really, and I think with any health issue, you got to do your own research too. You've got to talk to different doctors, talk to different people, talk to nurses. Nurses know so much.
I think that's the most important thing that I love to tell women, that um, so much we believe is normal, especially around our menstrual cycles. We
Oh
believe
yeah,
PMS is normal, and we believe that cramps are normal, and we believe that clots are normal, and we believe all these things because we've never been told that they're not actually normal, but they're not normal. And they can be normal and they can be fine. Like you can have a little clot this big, as the size of your little pinky fingernail, and that's fine. But if you're getting clots that are like big, chunky, that's not normal. And that's not what you're meant to have. And that's not the experience you're meant to have. You're not meant to have those cramps, and it's not meant to be debilitating. And you shouldn't know that you've got your period except that you're bleeding. If it's a healthy period, it should be bright red.
right.
It should be this. Um, None of these things are normalized, and none of these things are discussed, and none of these things are taught to us. And until we start to understand that, we don't ask questions. We don't tell them, actually, I get this incredibly depressed funk, and every month I want to kill myself. Now, if that's you, that's not normal. And if you're asking for help, and I say that carefully because it's like 86% of women who go and attempt suicide or check into a health facility because they
Yeah.
feeling suicidal. It's in the day before or the first 2 days of their period. Now, if they got there to the ED or the wherever and they were asked, "Where are you in your cycle?" as a standard question, then actually probably women would start to put together that, hang on a minute, this happened last month as well, and the month before that, and this isn't actually normal. So what can we put in place so that I'm resting and I have safety net around that I'm not going to go and do something and act upon these terrible feelings whilst I start to get help to improve that for whatever the reason. And for most people, it'll be an imbalance in your estrogen and progesterone levels.
Wow.
Um, and it's such a simple thing. Some things can be fixed so simply with just eating a raw carrot a day, or taking something like a Vitex Black Castus Angus, a Black Coast, yeah, Black Castus Angus, which is a herbal supplement that if you're from, just pre-puberty to about 30 to 40, before perimenopause really kicks in, then that's it. Some women, and if you lose your libido, some women you might just need a bit of wild yam cream, which increases your progesterone, which then improves that balance. And then you're not suicidal. Like, imagine if that's all you needed, is to put a tiny little skerrick on your forearm or your tummy every day. And I'm talking a tiny little bit, like you don't need very much. If we knew that, we'd put those things in place, and then life becomes really easy and we just ride the waves. And then it is just a wave, right? And we're a woman at wave school, not a ship at ocean school, because we're not
Yeah.
born to be ships sailing through the ocean. We're meant to be with the ocean.
Wow.
I think, what I think the thing about She Roars Boldly is, as women, we I think a lot of us are fierce, but we lose some of our power in the emotion because we don't get heard. And then there's all these other emotional problems that then feed into our triggers. And then we
Yeah.
desperately need to be heard. And then we are a hot mess, right? Because we're not being heard.
Right.
And when we're not being heard and it becomes emotional, people don't listen to us. Doctors won't listen to you because you're emotional. They'll just all hear the emotion. They sort of like can't handle it. So then um, it's like they ignore it. Oh, well, she's just crazy. Like, doesn't matter. as we get older, the problems get bigger maybe because that intensity of that burn below the level, deep down within us, it really starts to pick up because there's so many tiny times that we just don't get heard. And we have to then start to get louder and louder. But if we get louder and more emotional, then people think we're crazy. And we're told and we're labeled that she's just crazy. Whereas as we start to internalize our learnings and become more emotionally wise, and that our emotional quotient, our EQ, goes up, we start to be able to articulate better and people
Right.
can hear the problem because we're not emotional. And so the ones that are then being heard is because they've had this burning fire within them, but then it gets big enough that they get that emotional wisdom and they learn how to be able to deal with it and speak about it. And then they become this different vessel of a message. The message gets deeper within us and it comes out more from our internal space rather than our head and our voice like that, because that's where it's emotional. And I think once you change into that space of that fierceness with determination,
Right.
then you become more bold in your roar and it's heard better. If only we
Yeah.
could learn how to do that 20 years earlier, right? Like,
Yeah, like I said, I was just born weird. But yeah,
because you don't know, I think what happens, all power to them. They learn they learn a little bit about a lot of things, right? Doctors, but they're taught in a way that then they shut things down. Whereas when
right,
you are looking for information because you have no idea, you have this different reception. You are open to things and then you ask questions about things because you don't know. And it's
right,
actually how I got here because, I read some study for something about my kids with autism and epilepsy, and we didn't know what was going on. And I read a study, and then that led me to something else, which led me to something else. But because I didn't know, I had to ask questions, and then I had to research something else and it left me open. So then when I went to doctors to speak about different things for the kids, it really, because I was asking questions,
right,
that wasn't threatening to them. So then they could be really like, their
right.
ego was kind of stroked, right? So, but they were very open to giving me more information because I was so curious and they liked it. But each thing led to another thing. So when my kids started going through puberty and my cycle changed, that led me questioning a different totally thing. And then I just started asking my friends, like, when did you have your hysterectomy or whatever? And all of them had their hysterectomies when their kids were sort of at that prepubescent or early puberty stage. And no one has, I've not ever seen any study that talks about that. And is it that you needed a hysterectomy, or is it that you just had to learn a new cycle because your children growing up and their
Right,
hormones interact with yours unknowing? Like, we don't know how that works, but because we're in the same room and the same energy and we're eating the same foods and things, that if that affected my hormones, which then changed my cycle, which then I had to learn new, and so on. So it's powerful and it's amazing when you look for your own answers because you can't get the answers where you've looked before.
right. Yeah, and men too, any men listening to it,
Yeah,
you
that's with
you
anything. Yeah, yeah.
also gotta stand up, you know your body. And if you don't hear it, I mean, I have actually been very lucky, including the doctor that, you know, found the cancer. He even gave me options then. But I already had made up my mind prior to that because we had had cancer in the family. So I already knew what I was going to say. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to mess him around here. Let's just get it done. I have three
Yeah,
kids. I'm good. I had the boy.
yeah.
I'm done. Yeah, do it. But I mean, I have been very lucky with that. If not, went and found other doctors that believe in it, including naturopathic. Uh, and
Yeah.
my insurance even paid for some reason. I don't know. Because I
Oh,
couldn't walk at one point. I know I've had a lot of stuff. I'm so healthy now compared to, I literally had trouble walking and things like that. And, and in fact, the doctor I went to with that, he said, well, you've been over at the hospital talking to them. They had me through all kinds of therapies and stuff like that. He goes, but I'm shocked that he didn't tell you this because the head of the orthopedic at this hospital believes in naturopathic things. And I'm surprised he didn't recommend some things. It took a little drop, a little drop. It was allergies. They tested my
Yeah, right.
allergies. It was all allergies. And why
Wow.
he didn't test that? And I said, "Oh, I didn't have him. I had the guy under him."
Yeah.
And he goes, "That's why."
Yeah.
Yeah, so even in that system, there were two doctors with two different ideas, and one didn't realize that not being able to walk can also be an allergy reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious as to, can you sing again now
Oh, yeah.
without the
You know
physical
that.
pain?
Oh, I didn't sing for you guys. That's why you don't know that.
No, no,
Sometimes
we
I
dance.
sing.
We dance.
Sometimes when I speak, I just burst into a song.
Beautiful.
You just never really know what I'm going to do. I just realized, okay, yeah, Valencia, I didn't sing. I couldn't sing
No.
that day because I had something from the plane made me like I was so hoarse. I really don't sound like that at all the way I did in that. I don't even put that video out
Oh, I don't
because
put that together.
it doesn't sound anything like me, you know? And I realized other people just thought I was raspy. I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was really sick. But it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I didn't burst in song that day. But yeah, yeah, no problem. No problem at all with that. But yeah,
Mm.
but
So,
I think
a totally random thing about that though is that your throat is actually really connected to your vagina. There's a lot, and your vulva. There's a lot of the nerves that connect the two. So, and if you talk to people about childbirth, they will talk about how
I
you
had
should
no idea.
make vocal noises to open up your like the birthing space.
Interesting. Okay, you have to come back. We have a lot more to talk about here. I say that every podcast to people, but there's so much good information out there that we don't know.
Yeah,
And I'm learning so much doing this, talking to all you amazing people out there with these great, wonderful things.
fascinating fact.
So, yes, well,
Yeah.
we haven't even started with the stuff this wonderful woman does. So, yes, we'll reschedule in a couple months and you can come back again.
Fantastic.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. And just
Okay, well, we're
like,
kind of
yeah.
running out of time right now, but wow. See, I'm still going,
Uh,
now I gotta go research that, you know that, right?
yeah, do it, do it.
Yeah,
I'll send some links so you can put it
yeah,
into
you
the
you
podcast
don't
notes.
become a doctor unless you like research, a PhD, you
Yeah,
you have to like that stuff, and
for
I
sure.
love to research everything, so, yeah, I gotta look that one up.
I'll
Well, I
send you some links so you can add it to the
wow.
show notes.
Oh, well, this is
Well, thank
Dr.
you for having
Deborah,
me.
and this is She Wears Boldly, and can't wait to have you listen to this. She'll probably be out in about 3 weeks, but you'll hear her live there, sort of. Well, you'll think you are. But thank you so much for being with us, and please come back, please.
Thank you for having
Everybody
me.
have
I
a
definitely
great
will.
day, and everybody roar boldly, women, roar hard, roar boldly. Take care of your health. Listen to your bodies, please. Thank you so much, everyone.